In the last video, I talked all about what JavaScript is and why it's important to learn JavaScript. And in this video, I'm going to show you all the tools you need to download to follow along with this course and use JavaScript yourself. The very first tool you're going to need is going to be some form of web browser. I highly recommend using Google Chrome, as that's what I'm going to be using throughout the entire course. And when it comes to using the tools built into the browser for doing things such as debugging and fixing your errors, it's going to be really helpful if you have the exact same browser as me to follow along with. So you can get away with using a browser such as Edge or Firefox, but I highly recommend you use Chrome to follow along as closely as possible, as it'll make it much easier when we go through things such as using the browser tools. The next thing that you're going to need is Node.js. If you just type in Node.js download, you'll get brought to this page, and there's two versions you can download. There's the LTS version, which stands for long-term support, and then there's also the current version, which is the most up-to-date version. I recommend getting the long-term support version. That's because this is going to be up to date with all of the modern features you need, but it's not going to be so up to date that you possibly have breaking issues. Because the current version sometimes is broken, sometimes has issues with it, while the long-term support version is always going to be stable and it's going to have much less issues with it. So this is why I recommend downloading the long-term support version. Lastly, you're going to need some form of text editor to follow along with, and I highly recommend Visual Studio Code. This text editor was built specifically around web development and specifically JavaScript development. So it has some of the best, if not the best, tooling around JavaScript. It is entirely free to use, and it's what I'm going to be using for this course. So if you want to follow along exactly as I do, using the same text editor, Visual Studio Code, is incredibly important and will make the course so much easier to go through since you don't have to worry about differences in your editor versus my editor. Once you have these three downloaded, you literally have everything that you need in order to start running and writing your own JavaScript. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to write your very first application using JavaScript.